This is Chris Widener, and I want to welcome you to the conference call that we have in store for you today. It's our quarterly gold call of the Jim Rohn One-Year Success Plan program, and today we want to welcome you on behalf of Jim Rohn and Jim Rohn International President Kyle Wilson for the quarterly gold call one more time. And today we want to jump right into it because we have on the line with us Jim Rohn himself. Jim, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. It's good to be able to get together and get your thoughts on some of the things that we've been covering in the one-year program, a little more specific, and give some folks some more great information to help take them to a deeper level in their lives and their work and all the things that they're trying to accomplish. And so I want to just kind of make this a little kind of a personal chat, kind of a fireside type of thing where we're just sitting here, although we are teleconference, there's no fire, and in fact, I think both of us are probably in very warm weather at this point, so we don't really need a fire, but you're down in Beverly Hills where it's real nice weather and probably nice weather most of the time, and I'm up here in Seattle where it's actually, we've got our 3 weeks of nice weather going, so.
Well, it's delightful here. I just returned from Yellowstone. My first trip. I was raised in Idaho, and I'd never been to Yellowstone.
Wow.
So this weekend I had a chance to meet with some friends and had a chance to see Old Faithful, and it was just fantastic. Just got back.
Yeah, neat. Yeah, it's beautiful, especially during the summer, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just perfect.
Yeah, good. Well, so we just want to cover, basic ideas of success, and we'll go back through some of the things that we've been talking about in the one-year plan, and kind of deepen it and enrich it a little bit, and get some more of your thoughts that you're able to cover as we talk, as opposed to just the things that you've been writing. And so, I want to just kind of go through some basic principles and get your thoughts. So, here's question number one: of all the topics that we've covered, personal development, goal setting, health, money, relationships, time management, selling, communication, all the different things that are built into the one-year program, what do you see are the basic principles of success that transcend topic and are really core elements of success no matter what you're trying to accomplish? What do you see in your years of personal development, working on yourself, which you're always doing, but also working with the tens and tens of thousands of people that you've worked with? What are the basic principles of successful living and successful work?
Well, the core of it, of course, is what everybody really wants. They want satisfaction in what they do, finding something that, earns you the money, earns your fortune, helps to support your family, a chance to be productive, work to do, something. And sometimes you have to do work you don't really like to do, but then that gets you finally to a position, perhaps a job or employment or being self-employed, and finally get to do more of what you really like to do. But anyway, I think that's number one, finding something useful to do. 6 days of labor, the old formula says, and 1 day of rest and spirituality and family and prayer and church and all the rest. But those 6 days, really, it says, were to be devoted to labor. Mm-hmm. And that's number one. And, of course, the reason for labor is to, first of all, for in your own self-interest in terms of survival. Mm-hmm. Right? You have to produce in order to survive.
Yeah.
But then if you've taken on a wife, a man now must produce enough for himself and for his wife, his companion.
Yep.
Then if they have children, now the man must figure out a way to produce enough for himself and his family.
Yeah.
But the reason he's inspired to do that, of course, is because that's the higher life. Yes, you could just take care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's really not a moral question. Mm-hmm. But to step up to, have a companion to live with, that added responsibility and all the benefits that come with it, and the challenges. But now comes this unique challenge: how can I find a way to be more productive so I can do that? And then children that add blessing and benefit and uniqueness to the family and the mother and the father. Now the man must say to himself, I must figure out a way to be employed in such a way that I can take care of all of this, not just myself, but my family and do it in a manner in which is satisfying to my family, gives us all a future. So that is a centerpiece, no doubt about it.
Mm.
And then the other parts that come from, personal development, self-esteem, doing what you've concluded is right to do, and then do it consistently every day so that you feel good about yourself. At the end of the day, you can say, gosh, I poured it on. I did the best I could. I made the calls. I saw the people. I was early on my job.
Sure.
I stayed a little late to make sure it was done. That kind of satisfaction that leads to self-esteem. Then, from there, I think the challenge is to see if I can't develop more than one skill, learn to do other things that would be productive and might lead to a new career, a new opportunity for, the improvement of my financial resources.
Yeah.
And then learning to live well in society, becoming a person that other people look up to in terms of you have something always unique to say. You become a person of charisma, willing to share with someone else, share your wisdom, share your time. All of it together, I think, is what's important in order to become a person that has satisfaction, self-esteem, work that produces, the income that takes care of the life that you want to live and to secure the future. That's really the beginning.
Yeah. It's fascinating. As I listen to you talk, it's interesting. You're almost starting. I pictured in my mind kind of a target, starting at the very center, and then moving out a little bit more and a little bit more, and adding a skill, and then impacting others. And do you think a lot of people maybe shoot themselves in the foot in terms of their success because they try to get the whole ball of wax at once, or they try to take on too much, as opposed to starting with that core element of self and then moving to the outer rings of influence?
Yes, that's true. The lifespan now is 70 plus years, and hopefully you'll be blessed with 80, 90, 100, who knows? But there's time, and I know we get impatient with wanting to learn it all and do it all, and maybe have it all a little bit too soon. But it can come quickly enough by taking one grade at a time, and after you've finished first grade, get ready for second grade. After you've mastered one thing, right, see if you can't master something else. Keep your educational program going. Associate with people who furnish for you inspiration, help to refine your vision of the future, make a contribution to your personal life, spiritual life, business life. Association is so vitally important. Yeah. And then just see if in the mix of all of that you can't rise to your own expectations of becoming a unique person of influence, power, leadership ability to communicate, and just become that person that you would like to be. All of us have that opportunity, and there's time to do it. So it's called, laying the foundation, building on that, and keep this structure going till finally you're making some progress, momentum. Achievements are coming, more frequently than they used to. It can be an exciting journey if you treat it that way. Take on the challenges, overcome the obstacles, master the emotional flare of your disappointments and discouragements, because we all have to face that, and just do the very best you possibly can.
Now, you said earlier, finding what you want. And I know that I hear from time to time, on a regular basis really, people who will say, I don't know what I want. Or they might even be people who are already achieving some success, and they'll say, I don't know exactly what I want. And they've maybe narrowed it down. What can a person do? The folks who are on the call today, they obviously want success, they want to develop themselves, but they might be drifting a little bit, especially when you mention that thought of find what you want.
Right.
What does a person do to find out what they want when they look internally?
Well, I think, we can all use a little coaching. Somebody says, well, I can't think of anything right now. And you say, would you like to be in fantastically good health in the next 5 years? And everybody says, oh, yes, I want that. But they hadn't thought of it particularly. And then when somebody asks the question, they say, well, yes, of course. Say, well, why don't we work out just a few details on that so that 3, 4, 5 years from now, you've got the health and the stamina and the vitality, you've got a good physical support system then to carry you on into the future. Why don't we start with that? It can be, something that simple. Then it's a matter of, could you figure out ways to double your income where you are? Could you become of more value, working on the job or in a sales position or whatever? Why not work on that? Coaching really does help. Helps us to think of things that we wouldn't have thought of, off by ourselves or, trying to come up with our own list. That's why I think my goals workshop is very important because and this whole program is important because it helps us by someone else's comment and presentation to start, the mind thinking of things that you wouldn't have thought of just by yourself.
Yeah, it triggers things. Yeah, that's good stuff. Let me shift gears a little bit, and one of the things that I've wanted to ask you and talk a little bit about because of your years in teaching personal development and where you're at in your stage of your life compared to where I'm at in the stage of my life, and you've been doing this for pushing 40 years now and seen a lot of different things come and go, and you've been there over all those years and have really been at the top of it for so long. When you look at what people were doing and seeing and pursuing 25, 30 years ago compared to what's going on in this day and age, what would you say has changed from 25 years ago, if anything, in the whole area of personal development? What are some thoughts maybe that people need to think about now that they didn't have to think about some time ago? And what are some of the changes that you've seen?
Well, I think, when I started at age 25, which was, a lot of years ago, the information and teaching and training was, fairly simple, straightforward. We didn't have that much technology, there were no fax machines and no cell phones, and, nobody was online, and, none of that had happened. And so it was a much simpler process. But I think, as time has unfolded, we have got technology. We can access information more quickly. But it's still the same challenge. Unless you meet someone, or unless from a teacher or from your parents or from your community somewhere is instilled with you the desire for self-improvement, it's easy to just drift along and just not participate. When I was 25 years old, I tell that story. I meet Earl Schoaf, and he said, let me see your list of goals and let's go over them and talk about them because I've got some experience. I think I could help you. And I said, I don't have a list. Now, I'm 25 years old, and I don't have a list. At age 15, I didn't have a list. At age 21, I didn't have a list. Finally, at age 25, someone by just that simple comment said, let me see your list, let's go over it. And I said, I don't have one. What a revelation that was. It was something simple, but learning to set goals profoundly affected my life.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We've got technology, we've got seminars, we've got sermons, we've got the lyrics from songs, but somewhere along the way, and if you started early in that pursuit, like my good fortune was to really start, especially at age 25, more economically. My parents had taught me, spiritually, socially, but economically the world opened up when I met this man who gave me these unique philosophies, right? Profits are better than wages, work harder on yourself than you do on your job, develop multiple skills. Everybody, I think, is on the search. It's a little confusing as to where to go and who to see and who to listen to in terms of, finding some answers or some voices that are meaningful.
Yeah.
But I think I would encourage everybody, especially on our program, that simple phrase, I've used it so many times, if you search, you will find.
Right.
If you need an open door of opportunity, you just got to go knocking.
Yeah.
Those kind of prizes are not given to those who hope for them or need them.
Yes.
They're given to those who go to work, apply themselves, and go on the search. And I know that's what's happened in our program here. Everybody here is on the search, looking. And what I like to be is just one more voice. I'm certainly not the only voice. I don't have all the answers, but I've got some that have so dynamically affected my life. It's just been exciting for me, as you well know, to share both in public and private, and by these kind of courses that'll help people with just an idea, and then another one, and another trigger, and then put it to work, get some results, measure it, and see if you're happy with it, and then just keep growing.
Yeah. You know, it sounds like what you're getting down to here is that even though time has gone by and we've had a lot of technological advancement and that type of thing, the technology is really a tool to ingrain timeless truths into our lives. And
absolutely.
It's the timeless truths that change lives and solidify lives and make them the kinds of lives that we want to achieve.
True. The basics are always, those fundamentals are always constant.
Yeah.
It's as if you want to harvest, you must plant in the spring. And if you more wisely plant, the law of averages says your chances are much better to have an excellent harvest come harvest time. Mm-hmm. And it's possible to multiply what you've got into much more than what you have. If you plant it wisely, do the job, take care, love good and hate evil, all those basic things and fundamentals all work. But the process of learning and applying and growing is a never-ending challenge. Yeah. Then the big one, of course, is balance. You know, I'm approaching now age 73 come September. And, it's a different structure for me in terms of, what I do and how I use my time and my resources and all the rest than it was, 10 years ago or 50 years ago.
Sure.
But it's never ending. But it's an exciting challenge to see if I can't, get it more right every day.
Yeah.
And you can't then someday get it totally right and that's the end. There's always new challenges to give you, something to work for, something to overcome, something to achieve. And everybody can do it, making whatever measurable progress you want to make. That's the key.
Yeah.
Not measuring yourself by someone else, but by what would double your life's joys. What would be meaningful for you over the next 2 or 3 years. If you really stepped it up, could you multiply what you have in terms of a wide range of things? Multiply by 2, by 3, by 5 over the next 2 or 3 years. Mm. If you found a few extra answers, refined what you're doing, thought about things more significantly, and I think that's what we're all about here. Mm. I'm just excited about sharing my part.
Yeah. Now, you talked about the whole process and learning and developing, and it seems to me that learning and developing and process always includes failure, disappointment, those kinds of things, and it seems to me like we try to avoid those things. And of course, we don't want to be gluttony, have a gluttony for punishment. But at the same time, when you look back on life, those are really the times it seems that we really do grow and we learn what not to do.
Sure.
You mentioned the word mastering disappointments earlier. How do you do that? How do you we got people on the line, all of us have failed, and they might be disappointed in what has happened. How do they overcome failure or disappointment?
Well, you just start by trying your best to overcome, the small disappointments and then get ready for the big ones.
Yeah.
But, you can't win if you don't play the game.
Sure.
And if you play the game, there's no absolute guarantee that you're going to win. Mm-hmm. But you do the best you can. When you win, you celebrate. When you lose, it's disappointing, but you must master that. Mm-hmm. It's the difference between in sports an amateur and the pro. An amateur loses a close game, and it affects him for, maybe weeks or months. And but the professional loses a game, and maybe it was an important game. Mm. And they're affected the same way. They're angry, they're upset, maybe frustrated with themselves because they, missed something that they could have done, and the team loses and they lose, and, it's a bad experience. And best you not get between this athlete and the locker door, right? He might put a dent in you instead of the locker door.
Yeah.
But the difference between the pro, he very quickly, maybe after a few hours or a few minutes or whatever, says, well, that's that, and tomorrow night we will run them off the court.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night they don't have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
So he just very quickly recovers. And I think that's just a very good example. If you've had a bad day, maybe you whether physically or whatever else, right? You have to respond because that's our emotional content.
Yeah.
But if you use it, rather than let it, lay you low and keep you out of action, just try as quickly as you can to respond. And if you keep trying to do that. Now, the best way, of course, to recover is to very quickly have another game to play.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a good plan with another game to play, then you can't say tomorrow or this afternoon or next week, unless you've got something then to really go for next week. That's how you overcome, get past those disappointments, whether it's disappointments of people who disappoint you or if you're disappointed in yourself.
Yeah.
It's all the same. And that's a whole process you can get better at, become more professional in, letting it hurt and then letting it go.
Yeah. Yeah, and even on a smaller microcosm, a football game, they might have a bad play or whatever, and they can't just go sit on the sidelines and pout about it. They got to come up with the next play.
I mean, they've got to recover. By the time the ball is hiked on the next play, they've got to have settled it. The anger must quickly pass and quickly become fuel, and sometimes that's what happens.
Yeah.
The quarterback, in the huddle says, look, guys, and they all say, yes, okay, this time. And so they very quickly use, a mistake and now maybe turn it into a victory.
Sure, and a matter of refocusing.
Sure.
Instead of focusing on the dropped ball that just happened, they're focusing on the end zone still.
Well, mastering ourselves is, the big major key to the good life.
Mm-hmm.
A little boy 3 years old hits another little boy over the head just because he's a little bigger and stronger. And unless he's taught to manage that anger or manage that advantage, he starts to become an uncivilized person. So that starts early when we must manage anger. And then we must also explore opportunity. It starts early. How can I win and how can I keep from losing and how can I keep from losing my temper when it's not going to serve me well? How can I live orderly in a good society that gives me all the benefits? And yet how can I be aggressive in terms of productivity, security for my family, good health, association, social, all of that? It's been this twin complex forever. Evil on one side and good on the other, dangers ever lurking right next to opportunities. And sorting through it is, that's where the challenge is. Yeah. But then that's also where the good life is. You could huddle in your house and close the door and never go out and perhaps be a little more safe. But you wouldn't be safe in terms of productivity, satisfaction, winning a game, taking a risk, seeing if you can master what's available.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned also earlier in the call, and I jotted it down because I wanted to ask you about it. What you mentioned self-esteem as being one of the cores that we have to build upon if we want to have a successful life. And we're shaped as children, and a lot of that is given to us in the things we hear and those kinds of things. And so we all end up out in life at different stages. Some of us raised with real good self-esteem, some of us raised maybe to think less of ourselves than we probably ought to. But no matter where we start, we've got this ability to come to a true realization of who we are and what our destiny can be. What are the secrets, so to speak, of achieving a positive self-esteem about ourselves?
Well, I'd start with just the simple little things. If you want better health, you say, I think I buy into this idea, an apple a day. I think I'll start there, and then I'm going to read some books, and I'm going to do all the rest of the stuff to become healthy. And today I've eaten the first apple. By the end of that day, I'm telling you, your self-esteem starts to grow. Yeah. Someone says, can it be as simple as eating an apple in one day? And say, yes. If for you that's the beginning of a new direction of your health program, I've eaten my first apple. Tomorrow I'm going to eat the second one. I'm on my way. Now, if somewhere along the way, you slip off the wagon and, backslide, as they say, then you've got to recover from that. But it doesn't take long to start a program of new self-esteem. So I haven't been reading enough, and today I'm going to read the book, and this is the first one of the many I'm going to read that's going to change my life for the better. And if you get through that book, even though it's a struggle, by the time you finish it, you say, that's book one. I'm on my way. Yeah. That's how self-esteem starts to grow. It doesn't take a week. It doesn't take a month. It doesn't take a year. And then even if you slip once in a while, you say, hey, that's nothing. I can recover from that.
Yeah.
And when self-esteem grows, I'm telling you, self-confidence now helps you on the job to get there a little extra early, to be a little kinder, to listen a little better, perform with greater vigor and vitality, pass on a little word of wisdom to someone who needs it. You can start quickly and early in building self-esteem.
So you're touching on something that's so fascinating to me, because I hadn't really thought of it this way. But what you're saying is, it sounds like, is that you don't have to be something in order to have positive self-esteem. You just have to start becoming something, and that will improve your self-esteem.
Absolutely. Somebody says, well, I got to be tremendously successful to have high self-esteem. And the answer is no. Recovering from, something you've neglected over the last week or the last year, you say, today's the day, now I turn it all around. Your self-esteem will soar. Yeah,
that's so empowering, because I'm sure we have people who are listening to this who they're light years away from what they want to become, their ultimate dream of what they want to become, and it can be overwhelming to think, oh, I'm 10 years away from that. But if they say, I'm going to do this today, and that's the first step in that journey, then they begin to feel better about themselves today.
Hey, if you cleaned out your garage, that you've neglected, for the last several months,
yeah,
and by the time you have finished on this particular day, it is gleaming, it is shining, everything is in place. I mean, it's absolutely just that simple.
Yeah.
Doing something that you've let slide, turning it around, getting started, even though you don't finish the task, you can say, I have started, and that immediately. And then when you can say, I have continued, hey, it's been 3 days, and I've improved every day in this particular thing. That's where self-esteem comes from.
Yeah, that's freeing, I think, for a lot of people to hear that.
And that doesn't cost any money.
Yeah.
All that costs is simply a bit of decision-making, a bit of resolve on your part, and it can all turn around. Then you can start actually thinking about arriving at a better place 3 years from now. If you say, well, I hope I arrive at a better place 3 years from now, it might serve you, in some respect, but not much. But if you actually start a health program and a learning program and a new skills program and getting better at communication program, if you start that in 1 week and say, I have now finished this week of these new skills sets, and I'm positive that's going to take me in 3 years to a much better place than I was headed before I started. So in 1 week, you can experience the turnaround. Self-esteem starts to soar. Here's what happened to me when I was 25. My early success from the things I was taught was sufficient to inspire me to keep up the process that brought me to today. The early success. And it wasn't, overnight, and it wasn't millions, but the early success of how I felt about myself and the productivity I started to create, those early successes from that early comments of philosophy I got from Earl Shove, I was committed for a lifetime.
Wow. Well, let me shift gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about obstacles. And a lot of times people say, well, there's obstacles to my success. And I want to ask you,
the turnaround, self-esteem starts to soar. Here's what happened to me when I was 25. My early success from the things I was taught was sufficient to inspire me to keep up the process that brought me to today. The early success. And it wasn't, overnight, and it wasn't millions, but the early success of how I felt about myself and the productivity I started to create, those early successes from that early comments of philosophy I got from Earl Shove, I was committed for a lifetime.
Wow. Well, let me shift gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about obstacles. And a lot of times people say, well, there's obstacles to my success. And I want to ask you, in the time that you've had over the years teaching personal development and obviously living these principles yourself, what do you see are the primary obstacles across the landscape that people have to their own personal achievement, and what are the ways that they can overcome them?
Well, number one, we've talked ourselves into doing something good and new and powerful, and sure enough, the very first day, somebody's trying to talk us out of it. That's the obstacle. Yeah. But, that's a given. That's to be expected. Yeah. You're hoping for a sunny day, and suddenly it clouds up and rains, and you got to get through that. If it isn't one thing, it's another is a good old expression, and that's true. Yeah. Every day there's something. Somebody cuts you off on the freeway, and suddenly your temper or whatever wants to blast the horn, drive around them, get in front, slam on your brakes, almost cause a wreck. You've got to learn to manage that every day. Yeah. Right here in Beverly Hills, where I live on Rodeo Drive, if I walk out of my residence and I get in my car and I go to drive and I'm stopped at the red light, when the light turns green, what we have learned in Southern California, when the light turns green, you better not go. Huh. You've got to wait for those last 2 or 3 maniacs that are running the red light. Because if you go when it turns green, you could wind up dead. Yeah. Same as a pedestrian. When it says walk, you better not walk. You've got to wait for that last 1 or 2 that are pushing it to the limit. Right in front of your face it says walk, and there's cars whizzing by. Mm-hmm. You say, this doesn't make sense. So it doesn't matter whether you walk out on the street, and you think you can just leisurely go along, but sure enough, you got to pay attention. And then you've got to get past that in terms of emotion and whatever. And I think that's a good example. You start on a health program, sure enough. This morning, Chris, a little voice in my head said, I just came back from Montana. We've had long days and short nights. I'm a little bit weary. Yeah. And the little voice said, you wouldn't have to do those exercises this morning. Yeah. So that obstacle is in my own head.
That voice was in my head today, too, Jim.
And I listened to it for a while, and I said, no. Yeah. Because at the end of this day, I'm not going to feel that good about myself. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm limited in time, and I've got to modify my exercise program just a little, and that's okay. I can justify that. But, it is never ending. Yep. But then that's when the joy comes, when you win the game and the championship and walk off with the trophy at the end of the day, or the trophy at the end of 90 days, or you win the championship, or the disciplines of better health and exercise are starting to show. Yeah. The numbers are starting to improve, and you say, hey, small price to pay. Look what's happening now.
Yeah. And this is age old. I mean, the saying, the things I don't want to do, those are the things I do, and the things I want to do, I do not do. Uh-huh. And I mean, that's as old as the Bible itself. And
that's true. Temptation is both positive and negative. Yeah. So you do have to, but that's the game of life. Yep. And it started long before the beginning of the beginning, according to the storyteller. Sure. God seemed to enjoy this idea of having an adventure, created all these angels, doesn't say how long it took, but which is room for speculation. Yeah. Created one more beautiful than all the rest, Lucifer, and Lucifer makes his move on God, loses, takes a third of the angels with him, and so started the adventure between the creator and the spoiler. Right. And that adventure now continues. Yeah. But then if you couldn't lose, you couldn't win. If you weren't tempted, you couldn't overcome. If you didn't have obstacles and challenges, you wouldn't have the satisfaction of having conquered them. And now I'm getting better day by day conquering these challenges. A year ago I was so weak, here's what I did. Now I'm telling you that's all changed in a matter of 12 months. Look where I am. And the first is self-satisfaction, whether anyone else realizes it or not. As long as you know the progress you're making and the numbers are changing and your self-esteem is growing. Yeah,
it always amazes me when people will say, oh, that self-help stuff. And I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, if
Sure.
not 100,000 times.
Yeah.
But it starts with the self. It starts with the ability. Yeah.
But why some do? The other day I called it the mystery and the magic and the mystery. The magic is you can start at the bottom and get to the top. The mystery is, why wouldn't everybody want to do that?
Sure, yeah.
The magic is, I give a pretty good seminar, I must say, but one person walks out of my pretty good seminar and says, I'm going to change my life.
Yeah.
And later I get some letters and phone calls. Sure enough, it's happening. Another person that attended the same seminar says, when he walks out, I've heard all this stuff before. Why would anyone fall for this from the same seminar? So you really don't know. And maybe the person who walked out and said, I've heard all this before, maybe something happens in their life, something gets them turned around, and they develop a new appreciation for ideas no matter where they come from.
Yeah. We have different people on the plan at different stages in their life, and one of the things that I thought would be interesting to do would be to kind of go through a couple of different stages, and I'll prompt you with them, and then I'd like to hear your thoughts on your best piece of advice to that stage in life to help them ensure that they live a successful life.
Okay.
And so what about a young person just starting out, somebody who's 25, 30, 32 years old? What would be your best piece of advice for somebody at that stage in their life?
Well, number one, if you're employed, the key is to figure out ways to get better and better at where you're working. You know, the old philosophy that said, well, if I had a better job, I'd really pour it on. You know, if I had a better job, I'd come early. If I had a better job, I would do it better. And, that is not the clue. The clue is to say, I'm going to do this job so well that, it would be embarrassing for the company not to pay me more. Just to accept that kind of attitude. I'm going to start coming a little earlier, stay a little later. Ask if I can't, move up the ladder here. Could I take an extra class? What could I do to improve my value to the company? If you just start right there, you might as well start with employment. And start with your health, start with employment, start with something that you can go to work on immediately.
Yeah.
Is there a class I could take that could give me additional skill that would make me more valuable to my company? Go talk to your manager, go talk to your employer, talk to somebody about how you could improve right where you are. Because if you start trying your best to do your best where you are, you'll be invited, that better person you become for doing it, you may be invited to do it in a place that will help you make your fortune.
Yeah. Okay, let's skip forward to mid-career. People on the call today, they're maybe 40, 45 years old. They've been in it now for 20, 25 years, and they've achieved some things, but then they haven't achieved some things. Still some things on the horizon. What would be your best piece of advice for people in mid-career stage of their lives?
Well, for me, it was constantly trying to improve my skills, but then learning to master lifestyle that affects, all that you do. Mama taught me, along with my father, don't miss anything. Don't miss the play. Don't miss the game. Don't miss the performance. When my father was 93, if you would have called him at, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, he wouldn't be home. He's at the ball game. He's at the rodeo.
Yeah.
He's at church. He's somewhere.
Yeah.
When I would go spend some time with him, we'd go somewhere, and it's like now 10 o'clock or 10:30. He said, well, it's too early to go home. Let's go to Perkins, which was a 24-hour place where you could go see the people and chat and talk.
Sure.
That kind of thing. Keep improving on your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now, I started, instead of mid-career, I started earlier than that on improving lifestyle. When I started making just a little extra money, I said to my family, we don't have to order from the right-hand side of the menu anymore. Only the left-hand side. I just started thinking of things like that. That improved lifestyle, that made my family happy, that didn't cost that much. But the difference in their attitude and mine and working together just started to make those changes. Little things. Self-improvement, refining your skills, always striving for higher productivity because, if you want to grow, you've got to do that. And then figuring out ways to enjoy life.
Okay, let's jump ahead to folks who are at the end of their career. They're 60, 62, something like that. The average person retires at 65. You're beyond that, still going strong with no slowing down, it doesn't look like. But the average person, they're at the end of their career. They can start collecting, their Social Security or whatever and living off their pensions and their investments at 65 or so. What do you say to people at that stage in their life? What's your best piece of advice for them to have a successful life?
Well, my father probably was another good example. My father lived to be 93, and he never did retire. When he died, his paycheck was waiting for him.
Oh, really?
Now, you don't have to go say, well, I don't particularly want to be on a job till I'm 93.
Right.
But it doesn't have to necessarily be a job. But to be as productive as you can for as long as you can. Even if you retire from a job where you've got a paycheck, now you've got to figure out all these other things to do, because the old formula still says 6 days of work, some kind of work, some kind of useful activity for as long as you possibly can, to be as wise as you can, as productive as you can, as helpful as you can, to be as kind as you can.
Yeah.
To reach as far as you can for as long as you can. So really to say, at age 65 it's over, I just wouldn't come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Say, yes, I'm not going to be working here anymore, and I've got a little extra income coming in, right, because I've got the pension or whatever.
Right.
But now figure out some other ways. And if you've already made a sizable fortune or you've made some money, now figure out ways, to give it in meaningful ways that'll be happy for you for what it does.
Yeah, the whole concept of retirement is a relatively new one, where we stop being productive and we go hit a little white ball around some green grass.
True.
Yeah.
Even if you said, they've got these, people that have retired, but they have them go around to nursing homes, because they're ambulatory, they can walk, and then they go to hospitals and visit kids. And there's all kinds of things you can do to stay busy and perhaps even employed by figuring out ways long after you've left the job to stay active and busy, and then don't miss anything, even in those later years, that you can possibly attend, to enjoy the language and the lyrics and the music and the sermon and the song, and then association. Work on cultivating unique friendships that'll last, forever and forever. So the challenge is never ending, but the joy is also never ending if you can get it right.
One question that I wanted to ask you, it's easy for people to look at a person like a Jim Rohn or other people who've been very successful, who are at that level of success in their lives that we want to achieve or that we strive for, and to say they've been there their whole lives. They've had it all. They have it all. That type of thing, and it can be discouraging for people to see that. But then one of the things that I think is most fascinating is to hear from people who have achieved such great things is some of the times in their lives where they had a failure, where there was a misstep, where there was a time in their life where they weren't at the point where they are right now. Because what that does, it brings a little reality to the rest of us that says, oh, wait a minute, we can do this too. They started out where we are, and they've experienced the things that we've experienced. And so I'm wondering if you could share with us a time in your life where you had a failure or a misstep or something like that, and what you did to overcome it.
Well, probably financial is the easiest one to pick. I'd made a few million on my first adventure in terms of business and learning the skills and finding something productive to do. I was blessed with good fortune. Yeah. And then I saw it all swept away. Age 33, I'm broke.
What was the time frame there? How fast did that go? I mean, what you had?
Over about a year and a half period of time, it was all gone.
Wow.
Well, part of it was on paper, and that sure. Of course is easy to go.
Sure.
Stock options and stock that was valuable at one time, now it's not valuable.
Yeah.
Then foolish things I did, like signing guarantees for people, and that came back to haunt me.
Yeah.
But I finally got that and worked my way through that. And then I just simply started over. Because what occurred to me that I'd lost my money, but I hadn't lost my skills.
Yeah.
And the major thing is not to lose heart, and to say if I did it once, I can do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, I made an awful lot more over the years than I did that first time.
Yeah.
But ask any rich man, how did you get here? And he would say, would you like to hear the whole story?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody that's done very well, they've all got a unique story of the ups and the downs, what they had to overcome.
Yeah. And the long hours and the toil and the
How
work.
true. And then putting it back together, once when your spirit is sort of broken and you're embarrassed and, but you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Just go back to the street, go back to work, and get it done. And if you've made some mistakes, quickly repair, and then just get on with it.
Yeah.
That's the best all of us can do.
Yeah.
And there's time to do it. If you're 90, you might not have much time left. But hey, if you're 40, 50, 60, if you're 70, you got plenty of time. We just lost Bob Hope, but he was 100.
Yeah.
Who knows? Longevity is going to be probably 110, 125 before too long.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got time to do it, but just resolve that, hey, wherever I am, I'm going to take my resources, go back to work, I'm going to put it together and make it happen again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good words. We've got a little bit more time here. I want to kind of close with narrowing down into some themes that I've seen the one-year program address across the different topics, communication, integrity, and serving others. It seems like in all the different topics, there's been a theme that's run through the different topics, this idea of the need for good communication, the need for rock-solid integrity, and the need to be a person who serves others. And so I'm wondering if I could just give you the thought and then ask you for some of your latest thoughts on those topics.
Sure.
How about communication? We talked a lot about that in the plan. What are your thinkings on this whole concept of communication and the importance of it?
Well, it's central to our whole life. The first thing we struggle to do after we're born is to try to talk, try to communicate how we feel, try to communicate what's going on. Even at first it's confusing, and then little by little it gets clearer. It's like fine-tuning the screen, the snowy screen on your television set, and finally it comes clear. It is so important, and not to make that one of the centerpieces of the skills you learn, I think would be a mistake.
Right.
You just won't have what you could have in the future in terms of relationships, in terms of productivity, in terms of financial security, your place in society, or whether it's church or friendships, whatever it is, communication, it just makes such a difference one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it's a never-ending challenge to try to say it right, say what you feel, not say out of turn, better to listen this time than to talk. All those skills to learn we must master. Then communication for me in business, of course, was one, training, showing somebody how the business works. Two, communicating and teaching, trying to help people with the ideas you've got about how life works, setting goals, leadership, becoming better than you are. And then the third part was learning to inspire, helping people to see themselves better than they are. By language, we rise or fall. By language, we have or we don't have. Helping somebody to see is one of the greatest gifts you can exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And the better you exercise communication to help someone to see, the better you see.
Yeah.
I did a little talk on this weekend up in the mountains of Montana, and one of my talks was, in communication, the one who listens can be transformed, and then the one who speaks can also be transformed. If I struggle with the language to make it clear for you, I make it more clear for myself.
Yeah.
Then the joy that comes from good communications when someone finally says, hey, I see it.
Right.
And then very soon productivity follows and you say, sure enough, they saw it, they got it.
Right.
You just don't want to miss those occasions and that kind of pleasure that you can have by good communication.
Yeah. What about this second theme, integrity, and the bedrock that provides for us.
Yeah, there's no substitute, for integrity. We can forgive someone for a mistake in judgment, an error in judgment, but it's difficult to forgive someone who didn't maintain their integrity. They lied, or they misspoke, or their intentions were not noble.
Mm-hmm.
In a class I taught the other day, I said, you must hope to benefit not at the expense of others, but you must hope to benefit at the service of others. Hoping to benefit at the expense of others, getting somebody to buy something they really shouldn't buy, getting somebody to commit to something they really shouldn't have committed because it's going to benefit you, but it's going to cost them.
Yeah.
Those are moral lines you just don't want to cross.
Yeah.
Exaggeration, not telling the truth. Exaggeration is a childish attempt to make up for lack of self-worth. We try to make the numbers bigger than they should be simply because, we think that'll make us look bigger, or that somebody will buy quicker. You just have to resist all temptations to mess with your integrity.
Yeah. And integrity hurts not only the other person, but it hurts us as well. And probably more so us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Last theme here, serving others. All throughout this, we've talked about that, and you've mentioned it before. What's the key to serving others?
Part of the key is, if you get a chance to share a good word with somebody, do it. We've got those little quote books from my big book of quotes, the little one.
Yeah.
I think we've produced now like 1.5 to 2 million of those.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people are doing is buying a bunch of them and then just giving them away, having a little chat with somebody and say, by the way, here's a book that's really helped me, it might help you, and you just give it away.
Yeah.
The Richest Man in Babylon, I used to buy those, 100 at a time.
Huh.
And I'd find somebody that I thought it would be useful for. Out of conversation, I'd say, by the way, here's a book, right? Long before I wrote my own books. Now I can give away my own books. But back then, I gave away somebody else's book.
Yeah.
That I thought, deserved it and would do something for them. And so whether you say something well that serves someone, sure enough, you're having breakfast at Denny's and you talk to somebody and say, hey, here's a couple of ideas I've learned lately. You pass them along to this person at Denny's on a Tuesday morning. 5 years from now, they are doing this, doing that, got a lot of success going, and you see them again and you say, when all of this started for me, it was that breakfast on Tuesday morning at Denny's. And here's what you said to me. And maybe it was only 10 minutes long. And sure enough, it started a process for them that continued and continued. That kind of sharing, that kind of service, as well as being benevolent. I do the 70, 10, 10, and 10.
Yeah.
Then if you start doing extremely well, I only spend probably 10% of my income.
Yeah.
So that other 10, 10, and 10, those numbers are much higher.
Yeah.
To be able to give away most of what you earn, like R.J. Letourneau gave away 90% of his income, and the 10% that was left was plenty.
Right.
To produce more than you need for yourself,
yeah,
in terms of resources. But then also, giving some of your time, giving some of your ideas. There's so many ways to benefit someone who comes within your scope.
Great stuff, powerful stuff. Well, Jim, that's about all the time that we have for today, and I just want to say thanks. It's been very enlightening for me. I love just being able to do these conference calls with yourself and the other folks that we've lined up, because I learn so much, and I know that everybody on the call learns so much as well, and their lives are better for the things that you've done to improve yourself, and then turn around and give them to the rest of us. So,
I appreciate that. And I'm just so delighted with everyone's interest in, growing and learning, becoming better today than they were yesterday, better in the future than they were today. And I'm just so delighted to be, part of the program that lends a hand.
Yeah, great. Well, folks, that's the end of this conference call with Jim Rohn for the quarterly Gold Call. And we want to thank you for joining us. And again, Jim, thanks to you for being here with us. And we're going to see you on the next call. So thank you very much for joining us, and all of you have a great month.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.